Hello everyone and welcome to the channel. I'm Emmanuel, I'm a Boeing 737 pilot and a member of PMDG's tech team. Welcome to this tutorial on how to conduct a visual approach using the heads-up display in the PMDG Boeing 737 in Microsoft Flight Simulator. So, the first thing, let's have an overview into what we're about to do. We're going to land on runway 18 at La Palma Airport in the Canary Islands. This is a runway which does not have any straight-in approach available. So all we are going to see is that we have created a custom visual approach using the FMC's applicable features, as in you go here to the runway point, you create that runway extension point, and you define the flight path angle so that we can get some FMC guidance. Now this is what we've done over here, and this is going to lead us towards a 4-mile final. Now, we are going to use the heads-up display to cut this short a little bit further and intercept the final a little bit further along. And I'm going to tell you a couple of great clues of how you can use the HUD to perfect your flight path. So, first of all, we've got to start with the setup of the heads-up display. We are going to use the heads-up display VMC mode up here, and we are going to deselect any ILS frequencies that we've previously had, so that the A3 mode is no longer armed. Next up, we are going to define the runway elevation and length, which we can find in the approach chart. The runway elevation in this case is going to be 66 feet, and the runway length of La Palma's runway 18 is in the region of 2,200 meters. Let me quickly get out the chart so that you can see for yourself where to find this information. This is the airport chart for La Palma, and we are approaching runway 18. The threshold elevation 66 feet and 2,200 meters runway length, so we are going to insert this. Also, very important for the visual approach, we are defining the glide slope up here of 3 degrees. The 3-degree glide slope definition is going to add the glide slope reference line, which is going to become very important when we conduct the approach later on. So, for now, we are going to keep the HUD in primary mode for the most part of the approach, and then for the final approach we are going to switch it into VMC mode. However, let's quickly pull up VMC mode to explain what we are going to see. This is the HUD display as it looks in VMC mode. Now, as always, we have our flight path symbol, we have the energy state, so our speed above or below the MCP target speed, and we have the total energy state showing us how our speed is increasing or decreasing. So, for a more complete explanation of the symbology that we see on the heads-up display, please refer to my HUD introduction video. Now, for the VMC mode itself, you will see that this is quite a decluttered mode. We don't get any instrument information, we don't get any runway information and nothing like that. All that we have is our speed, our altitude, the horizon line, and of course the engaged autopilot modes. But all that we will really need for this approach is going to be those 3 symbols up here. Now, why do we want to use the head-up display then at all for a visual approach? Well, the HUD is used to enhance situational awareness, increase approach precision, and improve energy management when operating in visual conditions. This is particularly useful during visual approaches into airports without visual approach aids like a PAPI or a VASI. The principal benefit from the head-up system when used for a visual approach is that the glide path to the runway can be accurately controlled without the use of ground-based guidance signals. The glide slope reference line allows the pilot to track an inertial glide slope without concern for undershooting or overshooting the runway due to poor visual cues. Let's talk about the technique then, how we are going to fly this approach. When we align ourselves with the runway, basically all we need to do is to make sure that we are on the extended center line and the flight path symbol is located right on the runway. If this is on the aiming point, then that is where the airplane is going to end up. Now, looking further into what we want to do, let's talk about the vertical alignment, and that is going to be the more interesting thing. From the other heads-up display videos, you will already have seen the glide slope reference line, which is going to be the 3-degree line that we have inserted into the controller unit down here. And what we need to do in order to maintain our perfect 3-degree glide slope is to fly the airplane so that the 3-degree line is going to lie on the runway threshold. Preferably a tiny bit in front of the ideal aiming point so that we can touch down on the aiming point after a little bit of a flare. Now, let's talk about a bit of heads-up theory then. When the glide slope line is lying in front of the runway, then we need to make the descent a little bit more shallow so that we sort of drag the line along to the top of the display. In other words, if we imagine the shore of the island up there to be our runway, and the 3-degree line would be somewhere over here, then we'd need to make our path more shallow, as in pitch up a little bit, to drag the line to the top until it intersects with the point where we want to end up. If the line on the other hand side is too far above the runway threshold, then we need to steepen the descent a little bit by pitching down in order to get the line to move down until it meets the runway threshold. And that is pretty much the entire theory there is beyond approaching a runway in a visual approach with accurate vertical management. Now, that shall conclude the basic theory about the VMC approach with the heads-up display. Now let's spool forward a little bit and join the final approach to see what that is going to look like in action. We are now approximately 15 miles out from our landing runway and have just passed the deceleration point on our FMC schedule. Now, for now I've kept the head-up display in the primary mode because it gives us a little bit more information, like where the flaps up speeds are and where the next reference speeds are. Now, that is what we are going to keep for pretty much the entire configuration sequence of the plane, and only when we are turning to the final approach we are slowly going to start transitioning from the primary mode in the heads-up display to the VMC mode. So VMC is pre-selected over here, so it's only going to be the push of the mode button and then we will immediately be in the correct modes. As always, I'm going to fly this visual approach in accordance with my company SOPs, with the exception that we are going to cut the corner at the end a little bit to demonstrate the visual alignment for the approach using the heads-up display a bit better. Okay, let's go flaps 1. And flaps 5. So, if we start looking out for our airport already, down there it is. This is La Palma Airport. So we're going to fly our airplane pretty much into the bay over here, but for some additional terrain clearance we'll start an early left turn before we are on the extended center line, which would lead us pretty much into the terrain, as we can already nicely see on our navigation display as well. This, by the way, is a really good moment to quickly demonstrate the vertical situation display. As you can see, if we flew this all the way to the RX point, we would end up in the terrain, so we've got to start an early left turn, and we're going to do that with the heads-up display. So, for now, gear down and flaps 15. We start configuring our airplane for the final. We are also clear to land at this point. And flaps 30. Now let's disconnect the autopilot and start our turn towards the final, while also shifting to the VMC display. So, as explained earlier, this is our 3-degree line, this is our flight path vector, and we are basically going to maneuver the airplane to align the 3-degree line with the threshold of the landing runway that we can see up there. We can keep an eye on our energy level by looking at the speed symbols over here. So currently we are at a rather low speed and losing a little bit more. And that's why we can hear the engine spooling up right now. Okay, let's set something for the missed approach here, 3000. Recycle the flight directors. And finally disconnect the auto throttle. So now we are fully on the heads-up display and we're going to fly the approach using exclusively the HUD. We can already start to prepare bringing the 3-degree line onto the runway threshold, but this actually looks quite good to me for now. Starting the final turn. Of course in a pretty shallow way, because we don't want to trigger our GPWS. Okay, here we go. The 3-degree line is currently nicely aligned with the runway threshold, so if we now simply steer the flight path symbol right in the middle of the 3-degree line, then we can basically say that we are perfectly established on the vertical profile for our approach. Now the 3-degree line is a tiny bit above the aiming point over here, so I'm going to pitch down a little bit in order to drag the line downwards towards the aiming point. Continue, and here it is, right back on the aiming point, pitch up a little bit more, and we keep the flight path symbol pretty much aligned on here. Now, on the very final, if we aim the flight path symbol a tiny bit before the aiming point, that is a good moment for us to initiate the flare.
100, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10.
And here we are. So, welcome to La Palma Airport. This is how you fly the visual approach with the help of the heads-up display. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. I hope that you've learned something. If you did, then let me know in the comments below the video. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by using the Buy Me a Coffee link in the video description below, or by becoming a channel member, which is going to give you exclusive early access to new videos, and in first class membership even the ability to request your own custom videos to be made. Thank you very much for watching, and I'm looking forward to see you all again in the next one.